Russia is under attack again. Yesterday, Moscow was struck by drones. Today, a refinery has been targeted. This one in Russia's Krasnodar region. Pictures showed a fire engulfing the refinery. It was later put out by the local authorities. Casualties? None so far. But what caused this fire? Russia is blaming Ukraine. They say Kyiv launched a drone strike on the refinery. And that's just one attack. A separate one was reported in the Belgorod region. That one killed at least one Russian citizen. Again, Ukraine has been blamed. But how credible are these allegations? Kyiv has been silent so far. Russia has repeatedly blamed them for attacks inside Russian territory. But every time Kyiv has denied it, perhaps it's Ukraine's strategy to avoid escalation. Or maybe Russia is bluffing. Either way, the frequency of these attacks are growing. We've seen drones over Moscow, railway sabotages, bridges being blown up, and multiple refineries being targeted. The Russian president has reacted to these incidents. He says there are terror attacks.
As you know, the Kyiv regime has chosen a different path. The path of attempts to intimidate Russia, Russian citizens, and attacks on residential buildings. This is, of course, a clear sign of terrorist activities. First, I want to say that the Moscow air defense system worked in the regular way, although there are things for us to work on.
There are many ways to look at this. From Ukraine's perspective, these attacks give them more leverage. It puts fear in the mind of Russian citizens, which means indirect pressure on Moscow. From Russia's perspective, it's the perfect excuse. They can just say, look, Ukraine is attacking us, so we are escalating. But which of these is true? I'm afraid it's impossible to know because, as they say, truth is the first casualty of war. For the moment, let's assume Kyiv is behind these attacks. Do they have Western blessings for it? That's the tricky part. The US and Britain seem to have different policies. The White House says, don't attack Russia. The UK says, by all means. Listen to this.
Look, we do not support attacks inside of Russia. That's it. Period. I mean, I cannot be any more clear than what I just stated. We do not support attacks inside of Russia. Period.
It does also have the right to project force beyond its borders to undermine Russia's ability to project force into Ukraine itself. So legitimate military targets beyond its own border are part of Ukraine's self-defense.
So where does that leave Ukraine? In a bit of a pickle. President Zelensky is trying out a very delicate balancing act. Publicly, he says this is a defensive war, a war that has been forced upon Ukraine. But privately, he wants more aggressive tactics. That's what leaked documents from the Pentagon show. 3 audacious missions stand out. Zelensky wanted to occupy Russian border villages. He wanted to strike a pipeline carrying Russian oil to Hungary. And he wanted long-range missiles to hit Russian targets. NATO has given him long-range missiles, but that supply came on one condition, that those missiles will be used for defense and not offense. So far, the promise has been kept. Long-range missiles have not been used to hit Russian targets. Instead, we have seen unconventional methods, like Russian militias aligned to Ukraine or low-cost drones. There's logic to using these methods. You see, Russia's air defenses are designed to deter missiles. But low-flying drones, not so much. Listen in to this expert.
Russian air defenses, particularly around Moscow, are oriented on a different kind of threat. They are oriented on missiles, ballistic missiles, regional missiles, aircraft, bombers, but not short-range drones, which might be flying very low over the ground, for example. The Russians have been focused on the United States and what it could do, and not on what one of its neighbors might do with these relatively short-range drones.
That could be one reason. The idea of these attacks isn't to overpower Russia. That's virtually impossible. The idea is to put pressure on Putin, to make Russian citizens feel insecure and hence raise their voice. But is it working? Well, yes and no. The attacks have caught the Wagner Group's attention. Their chief is blaming the Russian Defense Ministry, once again in colorful language. Listen in.
The fact that they fly to Rubliovka, to your home, the hell with it, let your houses burn. And what do ordinary people do when drones with explosives crash into their windows? And therefore, as a citizen, I'm deeply indignant.
So there has been an impact, but not like mass paranoia. We're not seeing Russian citizens flooding bomb shelters, and that's the downside. Russia could use these attacks to step up the fighting. We are already seeing evidence of that. The city of Kyiv was attacked thrice in 24 hours this week. So in conclusion, let me say this. The attacks inside Russia represent a new phase of this war. This time, Ukraine is making the moves and Russia is on the receiving end. But how long will Putin let that slide? We'll find out soon enough.